And lift and roll shoulders again. And raising the right arm, stretch it up. Breathing out, turn the head slightly to the left. And stay here for an in and an out breath. Breathing in, bringing the head to the centre. And breathing out, lower the right arm. And lift and roll the right shoulder. Breathing in, raise the left arm, stretch it up. Breathing out, turn the head to the right. Stay here for an in and out breath. Bring the head back to the centre and breathing out, lower the left arm. Breathing in, raise the right arm and use the left hand just to support yourself as you come over in a slight lateral stretch as you come in and out. Breathing in, come back to the centre and breathing out, lower the right arm. And breathing in, raise the left arm. Breathing out, just bounce and your natural stretch in and out. Breathing in, come to the centre. And breathing out, lower the left arm. And lift and roll the shoulders. Bring one hand to the navel and one hand to the chest. Sense the length between the two, the navel and the chest. And then breathing out very gently, turn to the left. And you can bounce slightly in and out. Breathing into the centre and breathing out, very subtly turn to the right. And come to the centre and lower the arms. Step with the feet hip width apart. And then just very gently, hands on the waist, unsoften the knees, engaging the abdominal muscles. Have a sense of a flat back. That might mean extending the chest slightly, and again, optional just to have your bottom slightly behind you in terms of as you bend your knees, it naturally goes behind you, and then pressing the feet down. Coming up to standing. Keep your hands on the waist and then breathing in, balance, lifting the heels slightly. And then breathing out, lower the heels back down. And release the hands. Lift and roll the shoulders, clasp the hands behind you, aim the knuckles to the floor. And then gently go to the left. And come to the centre and very gently go to the right. And then come to the centre and release the hands. Just circle the wrists in one direction and then circle the wrists in the other direction. And then just open and close the fingers. And then hands to the heart. And we're going to come to a seated position. Do you want a bolster or anything to sit on? You're okay. So come to a seated position, however that works for you, just for a couple of moments, either cross-legged, or I like to sit up in this. And then just for a moment, just rest one hand on the navel, perhaps the right hand, and one hand at the chest level. And just breathing out, in and out. The invitation is to close your eyes, but only if that feels appropriate. Nowhere for you to go. Nothing to do. The breath is a direct correlation of our health and reflects where the mind and the body is. But of course, as soon as we think about the breath, then we tend to over-focus on it. So just imagine a golden thread linking the two hands and linking the two areas, the navel and the chest. And imagine that golden thread is lengthened, there's no kink in the thread. And then very gently release the hands and just bring the hands to the lower ribs. So your elbows are out to the side. And as you breathe in and out, just feel the ribs moving into the hands. And then just very gently release. Relax your hands, perhaps in the lap. And we're going to do a few breaths by breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Carry on for a few breaths in your own timing. And then just let the breath go. That variation on Brahmari breath is the nitric oxide enhancer. Just very gently open the hands and gently hug yourself. Option to slightly come forward, but that's up to you. And also option to just subtly go from side to side, stretching out the upper back. Breathing in, sitting up again, opening the arms, and if you can remember which was the other hand on top, just re-hugging. Coming slightly forward. And then coming up. And then either mentally say to yourself, and I'm putting Charlotte on the spot to say an Om Shanti, because she's very good at it. If you wanted to say an Om Shanti before we come to line, and okay, the floor is yours. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hope you heard that, Sarah, to the resonance that we were hearing it here. And then just very gently coming to lying either legs out or knees bent, just for a few times to connect to your breath. The back of the neck is long. And choose where you feel comfortable, either lying in Shavasana, or if you want to keep your knees bent, then that's fine too. And hands can be turned, palms turned up in classic Shavasana, or resting on the abdomen with the elbows out to the side. And just very gently let the head turn to one side. And stay here for a couple of breaths. The back of the neck is long, the chin is slightly down. Very gently come back to the center and let the head turn towards the other direction. And coming back to the center with the head. And keeping your position, if that's comfortable, breathing in, very gently raise the arms up above you. And the option is to raise them above and then behind. Chin slightly in, back the neck long. Just take an in and an out breath here with the hands above you. And when you next breathe out, start to breathe out, and they'll find the hands will naturally follow as you lower them back down to the ground, very slowly. The hands connect to the earth, and just take a breath in and out here. And again, breathing in, the elbows can be soft as you raise your arms up above you. Take an in and an out breath. And when you next breathe out, lower the arms back down alongside you. And then take a couple of these movements in your own time. You can stay with the arms above your head for as long as you like, and you can take resting breaths at the end of the movement. It's really slowing the system down. It's a fluid movement. Your shoulders aim to stay on the ground almost as you slide the arms back down. And then when you next finish that movement and the arms come back down alongside you, if you have got your feet along the ground in Shavasana, now would be the time to bend the knees and have the feet hip width apart. And keeping the right foot where it is, the right knee, hug the left knee into the chest. So this is a Apanasana, but it's half Apanasana, so it's called Ardha Apanasana. And as you hug the left knee into the chest, raise the left leg to the ceiling and the arms up above you, extending the left heel. And as you breathe out, lower the arms and hug the left knee into the chest. And then in your own time, again, as you breathe in, raise the left leg to the ceiling, extend the left heel. Arms go above you as little or as much as you would like. You can stay here for an in and out breath at the top of the movement. And then when you're ready, breathing out and lowering the left leg, hugging it back into the chest. You can stay to rest here for an in and an out breath. Repeating this movement a few times in your own breath. The movement is fluid. And then make the next movement the last one. Enjoy hugging the knee into the chest. And then very gently supporting the leg to place the left foot on the floor. And taking an in and an out resting breath before we transfer our attention to the right side. And then hugging the right knee into the chest. Raising the right sole of the foot to the ceiling and the hands up behind you. You can stay like this for a breath, and then when you're ready, lower the arms and hug the right knee into the chest. And again, just repeating this, pausing wherever you need to, a few times in your own breath. Ardha Apanasana on the right side. Lingering wherever you feel you might need to linger. And then making the next movement the last one. And lingering perhaps as you hug the right knee into the chest. And then when you're ready, very gently place the right foot onto the floor. Just very gently let the head turn from side to side. And then very gently come back to the centre. And the next movement is going to be a variation on bridge. But the difference here is that we're slowing the bridge down and we're making the movement only on the exhalation. So feet are hip width apart, knees are up to the ceiling, so your knees are bent. Palms are down on the floor to support you. I quite like to have my thumb and second finger holding the mat and almost pulling the mat away from my bottom towards my feet to give me an extra support. And you lift up as little or as much as you would like. Just taking an in and an out breath. As you breathe in again, as you breathe out, flatten the back to the ground, press your feet down and lift your bottom up. You can use your finger and thumb to support you, almost shoulders underneath you. And stay up here for an in breath and an out breath. Breathe in again, and as you next breathe out, lower the back down to the ground. And just take a couple of breaths here to relax. When you next breathe out, flatten the back once more to the ground, press your feet down, and lift the bottom up off the ground, as little or as much as you would like, and stay up here, coming down on an exhalation. And when you're down, just take a recovery in and out breath. And again, make this movement a couple of times to your breath pattern, staying for a rest as long as you like, moving on the exhalation to secure the pose. The chin tucks into the chest, the back of the neck extends as you lift up. And remembering to take rests in between the movement. And then make the next one, the last one, as you lift up on an exhalation in your own time. And then releasing back down again. And then relaxing as you hug one knee and then the other knee into the chest. You can stay static in this pose, so in other words, really hugging the knees into the chest. Or you can slightly rock from side to side. Or you can hug the knees into the chest and still holding them, let them drift away from you to arm's length a couple of times. And enjoy this relaxation, compensation for the bridge pose that we've made. And we're going to be coming onto our sides, or coming however works for you, via a seated position to being on our knees. So if you don't want to be on your knees, we'll come perhaps to a seated position first, so I can show you what you might like to do if you want to stay in a seated position, and then if we don't want to be in a seated position, we'll come onto the knees. So the seated version of this is sitting up and rounding chin to chest. And carry on doing that, but the non-seated version is a cat version, which means kneeling very gently. And coming onto all fours. You can always come back to a seated position if that works for you. Coming with the bottom towards the heels, hands out in front, and then leading with the chest. And the head obviously leads a little bit as well. Almost a back bend to come up to kneeling. Slightly rounding the back, bringing the bottom to the heels, or towards the heels. Take an in and an out breath. And when you next inhale, lead with the chest, slightly with the head, to dip the back to come up to kneeling. And then breathing out subtly round the back, bringing the bottom towards the heels. Resting the elbows on the ground. And when you next inhale, slightly lead with the chest, dipping the back fractionally, coming up to all fours, and then breathing out, rounding. Bottom goes towards the heels. And then coming back to kneeling on all fours, slide the hands towards your knees to kneel up. If you don't want to do this, then just either sit and do the very first one, or do the one that we've just done. Breathing out, lower the hands. Bottom towards the heels. Elbows on the ground. And then sliding the hands to the knees to kneel up. Is that hands up? Breathing out, lowering the hands back down to the ground. Bottom goes towards the heels. And then very gently come to all fours. I'm going to invite you to extend the right leg back, tucking the right toes underneath so that you're stretching out underneath the right toes and just rocking slightly forwards and backwards. So you're accessing the lung meridian here under the feet. And then bending the right knee back down to the earth and tucking the left toes underneath as you extend the left leg back and just rock slightly forwards and backwards. Bring the left knee to the ground. And then I'm going to slide the hands back to the knees. I'm going to come very gently to standing, however that works for you. So you can roll up vertebra by vertebra, really bend the knees and come up to standing. Lifting and rolling the shoulders. So just come to a very familiar side to side movement. And if you want to really add to the mindfulness here, and this is optional, you'll see why. The original pose was to have the hands out and to swirl round to the right. Now you'll see that you might want to stop that quite quickly because you could go dizzy. So just then go back to side to side. So the reason for feeling slightly dizzy, it disconnects the mind from anything that you might be thinking of. And that is a much more, 21 to 23 times. But just be very careful you don't.
When you get dizzy,
You could get very dizzy.
No, I can't.
So this was the original one.
Going really fast. It's going
Yeah.
quickly.
Don't laugh when I sort of everything spins. But it really disconnects the mind. But as I said, the modification is this very gentle side to side.
I like that.
You like that? So
You don't do it in the other direction?
no,
Yes,
it's
it's interesting. And that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Isn't that strange? I don't know why. It's only to the right. I wonder if it replicates the swell of, because you know, in Australia it goes the other way,
Yes.
and up here it goes this way, and it
Yes.
replicates
Maybe, yeah, swirling water,
a swirling water type of thing, and the swirl, because our bodies are high
yeah. It
water,
swirls my semicircular canals.
does it? And so then just lifting and rolling the shoulders, and just breathing in, hands out, hands back, breathing in, hands out, and hands back. And breathing in, hands out, and hands back. Just circle the elbows a couple of times in one direction, and then circle the elbows a couple of times in the other direction.
People build up to being able to do the 23 rotations, so they sort of train, sort of start with perhaps 10 and then do that a few times.
You can do that, yes, yes, absolutely. And I mean, you don't, people, and then just release the arms. People don't necessarily do that whole thing because you get people falling over.
Yeah, quite a lot.
It's quite a lot, isn't it? So then the next thing is just circling the arms up, making your sunshine, stretching out and circling the arms down. And then we're going to come to lying in a lying twist. So your arms are out in a T, or if that's too much for your elbows, if your arms in an A, knees are bent and feet are hip width apart. Now this is going to be a very slowed down version of something that should be quite familiar to you. So with your arms out in a T, palms down. If that's too much under the arms, make it a much more narrow A. So the aim here is to keep the shoulders on the floor as much as possible. And you can lift your hips by all means, but keeping the shoulders on the floor. So that means moving the knees less, then move the knees less. And let both knees drift over. Is that too much?
No, I was thinking to try and lie without the bother, but I do need it. So.
Okay. So just let both knees drift to the right. You can lift the hips off, but try and keep the shoulders on the ground. Now you can stay here for an in and an out breath. There's no hurry. When you're ready on an in breath, bring the knees back to the centre. And very gently let both knees drift over to the left. The hip can lift, but your shoulders stay on the floor. Stay here, or when you're ready, on an in breath. Bring the knees back to the centre. And just readjust. So I like my feet to hip width apart. If you are a little bit more of a purist and you like your feet together, then the knees should stay together as you drop the knees to the ground. That's a harder option, but you might prefer that. Bringing the knees back up to the centre and just letting the knees drift over to the other side. And of course you've got the option, and it is an option, of moving your head away from the direction of the knees. If you want to keep your head where it is, that's fine. You can stay on one side for up to 4 to 5, 6 breaths, or you might like to make it a slightly more dynamic movement. Staying for a couple of breaths, or moving with each breath. back to the centre. And then lowering the arms, and this time hugging both knees into the chest. Keeping the hands around the knees. As you breathe in, let both knees drift away from you to arm's length. And then the very familiar breathing out, hugging the knees into the chest. And repeat this a few times in your own breath pattern. But you can opt to stay hugging the knees into the chest for a couple of breaths if you want to. It's a freestyle. Just go at your own pace. And if you want to engage the core, the abdominal muscles, you can let your tummy muscles do the work rather than the hands. Again, that's your choice. It's working on the apana energy. It's a variation of apanasana. And then very gently hug the knees into the chest for the last time. And then release the feet back down to the earth. Either coming into Shavasana or have knees bent, resting the hands on the abdomen. The knees can also be touching in constructive rest. We're just going to spend the next few breaths becoming aware of where we're lying, the texture of the clothes on our skin, the parts of the body connecting to the earth, becoming aware of our feet, the space beyond the feet. Tops of the feet and the soles and the heels, the ankles, the lower legs, the calves and the shins, knees, the upper legs, the thighs, pelvis, hips. Moving along the front of the body, stomach, up to the chest, the lungs, the heart, the shoulders, the upper arms, elbows, forearms and wrists, the hands resting on the abdomen, perhaps, palms, fingers, and the space beyond the fingers. Tracing along the spine, from the lower spine, along the vertebra, to the mid-back, upper back, back of the neck, back of the head, the ears, and the space between the ears, top of the head, forehead, eyebrows, smoothing along the eyebrows, the eyes, temples, along the jaw, down to the chin and the throat. Take a moment to have a thought for the day, for yourself or someone close to you. And then let that thought go. The intention's been set. And bringing the focus to the base of the nostrils and noticing the air as it goes in. And breathing out anything that's not serving you today to the edge of the body. And now as you breathe out, you're breathing out the air to the edge of the world. And finally, the breath out goes to the edge of the universe. To hug the knees once more into the chest, perhaps going from side to side, maybe hugging in and out, maybe searching the knees. Just circle the ankles a couple of times one way and then the other way. And then taking your time to come, however that suits you, to a seated position. Bringing the hands to the heart. Chest. Breathing in, just opening the fingers. And breathing out, fingers to the chest. Again, breathing in, opening out, fingers to the chest. And this time as you open your fingers, now take a bow for yourself for the day ahead. Drop your hands to your knees and thank you for joining me today. And then